Good morning, everybody. It's Dr. Galvin with another post-ER shift update. My name is Jeffrey Galvin. I'm a board-certified emergency medicine physician, and I also run a functional medicine clinic outside of Charlotte. Been posting updates about COVID and what's going on in the front lines since this started. Basically, ER is looking better. We are still seeing lots of COVID, almost invariably. The sick people are unimmunized, which we've been talking about all along. People who are dying are unimmunized, but the numbers of those people we're seeing are much less. So that's good news, especially given the beating we've really taken in the last couple months. Today, I want to talk a little bit about boosters. There's a lot of talk about boosters, and at this point, there have been boosters approved for all three of the major vaccines: Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J. The mRNA vaccines have proven to be much more effective than J&J. J&J is only felt to be about 68% effective, and so the recommendations for those boosters are a little bit different. The recommendations for Moderna and J&J are basically identical. They're indicated for anybody over 65 or anyone between 18 and 64 that has significant underlying medical problems that put them at increased risk, or you work in a place where you get frequent exposure to COVID or are at high risk, so people that work in the hospital. And again, the recommendations are exactly the same for both Moderna and Pfizer. Both of those have been approved by the FDA. J&J is a little bit different. Again, J&J is not as effective, and so that recommendation for a booster has been extended to anybody over 18 that's gotten J&J should get a booster. And they're saying that you should get it 2 months or beyond after getting the first dose. So they're really recommending that you get a fairly early booster for J&J. The Moderna and Pfizer recommendation is 6 months after your last immunization, you should get a booster. Now, interesting, NIH came out with a little study that showed that mixing and matching vaccines might be more effective than using individual vaccines. Meaning that if you got Moderna, instead of getting a booster with Moderna, maybe you get something else and you might get better effect. And so they designed a kind of neat little study. Unfortunately, it's preliminary data, not peer reviewed yet, but it does sort of back up some things that other studies have shown. And what they did was they took basically three groups of roughly 150 people. 150 that initially got J&J, 150 people that got Moderna, 150 people that got the Pfizer vaccines, and then they broke those up into three smaller groups of 50 people each, and one group got the same vaccine that they got the first time. So if you got Moderna for the first two, your booster was Moderna. Then another group in that got the first two doses of Moderna got J&J as a booster, and the last group got Pfizer as a booster, and then they mixed and matched. So there were 9 different combinations. And what they found was very robust immune response in both neutralizing and binding antibodies. And I want to make sure I get this data right. But what they found was basically Moderna seemed to work the best. So if you got Pfizer and you got Moderna, you had a bigger antibody response than if you got Pfizer again. The biggest response we're seeing with people that got J&J, because that one doesn't really work as well. And so if you boost that with Pfizer or Moderna, you get very, very good results. And so I think the FDA is going to be looking at mixing and matching. It certainly makes it logistically better. And if you get better results from mixing and matching, then if you got J&J, you might want to get Moderna as your booster. I think the FDA is looking at that now, and hopefully within the next week or two, we'll get some more guidance on that. But basically, my recommendation is that you get a booster if you're 6 months out. Now, people have asked me if I got my booster yet. My second dose was January 15th. I have not, and I'm probably not going to get a booster right away. And why is that? Because I had a very minor breakthrough case of COVID several weeks ago. And that probably is my booster. And we don't have recommendations in the US yet about what to do with people that have breakthrough cases of COVID in terms of boosters, but Israel does. And Israel is saying, wait 6 months if you've had a breakthrough case, wait 6 months after that case to consider getting a booster. And so I'm personally going to wait and see what the recommendations are. I don't feel I'm at any increased risk. As a matter of fact, I feel kind of, since I had Moderna as my first 2 cases and then had a breakthrough case, I probably have both natural and vaccine immunity, so I have a superpower, and I'm not really worried about my own personal risk. But I'm going to be following the data, and as soon as we get some good recommendations, I'll share that with you. I'm going to call it quits for the night. It's been a long night in the ER, but as usual, everybody stay safe. Get immunized if you're not. If you are immunized and you're 6 months out, look at these guidelines, talk to your doctor, and decide whether or not you need a booster. It might be worthwhile to see what the FDA recommends about mixing and matching these boosters, because you may have more protection by doing that. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon.